What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Texas Nite Owl podcast with James Martin. We are here with the Godfather, my Godfather, James Garza. This is, thank you first and foremost for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
For all you do. Take us to the beginning, if you would, because it's, I'm trying to, you think you know your Godfather after all these years, and we started talking about these stories. And to talk about just growing up in San Antonio, and how you started.
Well, I'm a barrio boy. I went to Lanier High School, and part of my schooling was in the ROTC, which I really enjoyed. I was on the drill team. I was a lieutenant colonel, a brigade commander, and so I enjoyed the military style of life. And I was also motivated because my dad's a World War II veteran. And at that World War II, my dad, 4 of his brothers, all served in World War II. And my dad was a decorated soldier with a Bronze Star and Purple Heart. So it was sort of in my blood to want to be in the military. So when I graduated, at first I wanted to go to college. Then I found out I was restless, and I enlisted in the Air Force.
Okay.
And that was in 1966. From there, I went through basic training, and I had asked to be in the medical field.
Did you go to Base Secure in San Antonio?
Yeah, here at Lackland Air Force Base.
Okay, Lackland. Okay.
Anyway, I had applied for military medical training, but as it is in the military, you go where they need you, and so they were short what they call security policemen, which is the same thing as the military police in the Army. Different titles, but we all perform the same duty. Law enforcement, base security, customs, you name it. Anything that's got to do with protecting the base and enforcing the law. That's what I got assigned to.
How long were you after basic? How long was it before you were sent off?
Well, my first 6 months, actually, I was assigned to Maelstrom Air Force Base in Montana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which was a rude awakening because I got there in April, and there was a blizzard going on. And so I knew I was in trouble.
You're a Texas boy.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is here.
Oh, my gosh. Beautiful country.
Yeah.
But the snowfall was like 6 foot, 8 foot drifts. The wind chill factor was minus 30 degrees. And when you're walking through snow drifts and they're 6 foot high and you're only 5'4", it creates a problem there for visibility.
So how hard do you laugh when we have a hard freeze in San Antonio and they shut down the whole city?
Yeah, I know.
After going through that. So how long were you in Montana?
About 6 months.
Okay.
And then I volunteered to go to Nam. And
what made you volunteer? Was it the aforementioned, talking about like your the pride of the military background? And
it was a sense of duty to some of my fellow schoolmates that had been killed in Nam.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go and do my part, as they did, and so I did. But it's a strange world, When my dad went to Europe, they went by boat. So they had 30 days to get accustomed to being dropped off in a war zone.
Mm-hmm.
In the Vietnam War, you jumped on a jet plane, you flew 18 hours, you landed at this time I landed at Thompson Nude Air Force Base, and you get off the plane and they go, this doesn't look like the United States anymore,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Had you left the country prior to that? Had you ever been out of the U.S.?
Never in my life.
Had you been out of Texas?
Yeah, New Braunfels.
Okay. So way out. Seasoned traveler. So you get there. What's the first thing that happens? What's the first thing that you remember?
Oh, I was just amazed by the foot traffic. Soldiers, airmen, Coast Guard. I mean, the place was swarming with people going different places. And so I got there, and my assignment was to report on the base in 2 days, but I got there early. And so what I did, I spent about half a day there. Mm-hmm. Then they put me on what they call a cargo plane, a C-130. and they flew me into Cameron Air Force Base. And then the adventure began. You know, when you look back and you look what happened, you say, what was I thinking? You know?
What, from the time that you decided to enlist, 6-month stretch in Montana, and then from Montana, stopping when I read after basic, then Montana to Vietnam. How long was it before the real, I guess, what most people would view as war or battle, or what's the first thing that happened that was, you know?
Well, you know, in those base, it's a Cameron Air Force Base. It was a huge base, covered a lot of area. Mm-hmm. So my first night there, you know, you could hear flares being shot from mortars. You could hear artillery being fired by the Koreans, which were right close to us. Mm-hmm. And just the night sounds of airplanes, fighter planes taking off. But what really struck me is when you get down there, and the base had just been set up not too long ago, so we didn't have you know, buildings like we did in Air Force Base. We had little wall hooches with a tent top on it. Oh. And then we had community bathrooms and community piss pots where you could just go behind a wall and do your business. And so it was just, I mean, something you're not used to. And the thing that really opened up my eyes, because we had outhouses. And if I can describe it to you, it's just a small little building with 2 benches facing each other with 3 holes. And under each hole, there was a 55-gallon barrel where you did your business. And so for my first time there, I walked in and I sat on the pot, and a Vietnamese woman walked in, jumped on top of the thing and did her business, and then walked out.
Co-ed.
Yeah, co-ed. You know, something you don't see too often.
Wow.
It's a different culture.
Yeah, I'll say. So you mentioned taking a little further step back, because this kind of ties into the next thing I want to ask you, but you mentioned being, you know, from the hood, audio boy. So I guess talk a little bit about that. Talk about, you know, what that was like here in San Antonio at that time in your particular neighborhood, what particular neighborhood that was, and just the...
Well, for most people that if they lived in San Antonio, I lived off, well, several locations because we moved a lot. But basically, most of the time we lived on Leona and Durango, which is now where the University of Texas School is at.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so I went to Lanier from junior high until I graduated. And the environment was different at that time. You know, you had gangs. I mean, we were all poor, but we really didn't know how poor we were.
Yeah.
You know, but the community was very, very tight. And the school, there was some discrimination, of course. But, you know, you can let it bother you, or you just work your way around it, and that's what I decided to do.
Did you feel like the discrimination was mostly Anglo against Mexican or vice versa, or was there other?
In Lanier, we only had about 2 Anglos and 1 black. The rest were Hispanic. I think the discrimination was the teachers. You know, in high school, some of the teachers would make very offensive statements about Latinos, Hispanics, and stuff like that.
So a lot of Anglo teachers, not really any Hispanic teachers.
No.
And all Anglo teachers, mostly all Anglo are predominantly Hispanic or Mexican American, to be specific, kids, and then 1 poor black guy, and then the 1 poor white kid.
Well, you know, they were readily accepted. You know, we didn't discriminate. You know, we were all friends with them.
Yeah.
They spoke Spanish. They learned how to speak Spanish. So there's no problems.
No.
But the thing is, you know, going from the barrio is when you're not used to the outside world, and you go to the basic training, and you walk into the chow hall, and you go, wow, I mean, they had grapefruit and they had bananas and they had apples and bacon and eggs. You know, I said, this is going to be good.
No Fidel. Oh, where's the Fidel?
I mean, yeah, they fed you well. I mean, there was a big choice. But, you know, from going to that, and then you go to Vietnam, and the menu changes.
Uh-huh.
You know, we're given sea rations, and I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Grandpa told me about that. Yeah.
They're boxes, you know.
Dry, dehydrated food mostly, right?
These were World War II leftovers.
Wow.
So there were cans.
Okay.
You know, there were canned bean and weenies, and there was canned beef stew, and there was canned different type of meats, and then a little some cigarettes from World War II.
Yeah.
They were pretty dry, but they were part of the package. You know, so there were little odds and ends on it, but they were hard to deal with because they were cold and they were lumpy. But you know, when you're hungry, you're hungry. Yeah.
So it was at that time that pretty much the hot cooked meals stopped. They stopped completely, or that?
I think after being there about 6 months, they modernized the thing a little bit, and they set up a chow hall. So you would walk in there with your chow platter, you know, the old tin with where they popped your food in there, and you go in there and line and eat, and then when you get through, you go wash it, rinse it, and I mean, but it was good. I can't complain. You know, you got to eat.
What was the dynamic like? Because you know, there's always the. I'm sure that's one of the first questions. Where are you from? When you're meeting, you know, you're cohabitating with all these new people from all over the country, and you got guys that. There's the one thing I've noticed being from Texas. When you meet people who are not from Texas, I get one of two reactions. I get, "Oh, you're from Texas," or it's, "Oh, you're from Texas." You know, it's like that. Maybe that's just me. But what was the response of, I guess, that you recall from, or did people even care? What was it like?
Oh, I mean, when you start talking about a big mixture, you know, I had military policemen that were from Syracuse, New York, from Louisiana, from Mississippi, from the hills of Tennessee. I mean, we were just a big mixture. But when you're in there in an area that draws you together, you form a friendship.
Right.
And so there really wasn't any problems or stuff like that where we picked on each other or disliked where we were from. The interesting part when you said, if you're from Texas, I was assigned to work with the Korean military police unit, the White Horse Division. And every time that I got a Korean MP to work with me, when I told them where I was from, they'd say, "You got a Winchester?"
Yeah, everybody's got their...
You got a Winchester? I said, "No, I don't have Winchester." "You have a ranch?" I said, "No, I don't have a ranch." But you know, they all thought that if you're from Texas, you had to have a Winchester, and you know, you had to have cows and a ranch
and a horse, and
But I tell you, those guys were some of the best military policemen that I ever worked for. Fearless, loyal, and protective. I mean, I was honored to work with the Koreans.
That's awesome. That's the thing I guess a lot of people don't get to hear. You know, is that, you know, when people talk about Vietnam, or you know. I guess first and foremost for even my generation, people my age, and I'm sure you know younger, there's just so much of the history that's been lost on them, and there's not that. I guess I've been watching stuff on it, and it's blowing my mind. I've been, you know, I wanted to know more, you know, before I had you here to really just you know gain some knowledge on it, and so I guess the affiliation or the the involvement of other countries and how that played out. Like I didn't understand about the French. See, I'm already messing it up.
Yeah, the occupied Vietnam for a number of years.
French occupation, and then talking about Korea, and then you know the North Korea, South Korea. I had just gotten up to where the peace talks were happening. I guess and what had happened with that about the ceasefire, the potential cessation of the bombing.
Yeah.
And then, you know,
Vietnam was multinational too. I mean, I knew that there was Thai forces up north from us. There were Australians. There were BRICS. Yeah, I mean, there were all kinds of nations involved in it. So it was a combined effort.
What was it like actually being an MP? What was, I guess, what stands out about that in terms of the role you were playing versus, just being a soldier there? How is your role? I guess if you can, help me understand it.
Well, I was there for 18 months. In those 18 months, the role of a military policeman or security police, I did everything. We did law enforcement on the base.
Mm-hmm.
I did convoy duty, escorting the shotgun.
How does that work, convoy duty?
Yeah, you ride behind them with a Jeep and provide cover for them in case there's problems. I provided security for medical teams that went into the Central Highlands to give medical aid to the Mount Yard people. I did ambush. I did search and destroy. During the Tet Offensive, I reinforced. I went with a group of people to reinforce a base that was under siege, which of all the things that stood out, that was the most traumatic. What happened is I had been on duty, and I had been assigned to what they call a QRT team, Quick Reactionary Team. And 25 of us from my base and 25 from other bases are on standby. Well, during the Tet Offensive, we went on alert, and they told us that we were going to be deployed. So we reported to the flight line. We got into a C-130 open. We sat to the side. In the middle was our pallets with ammunition, food, medical supplies, everything we needed. We sat on the flight line and we looked at each other and we said, "Where are we going?" And nobody knew. We didn't know where we were going. We knew that we were going to be deployed because the base was under siege. So we took off and sat in the plane. And it was eerie because you're sitting in the darkness with just red lights around you and you're still asking, where are we going? The next thing we know is we're landing, and they do a combat landing, and that is where the plane comes steeply, drops down quickly, skids along the runway, and stops quickly. And the back opens up, and we push all our gear out, and we deploy and scatter out. And the question again was, where are we?
yeah. So you don't know any idea how long the flight's going to be, how long before you land,
where we're going,
if you're going to get any rest. I'm sure you don't anyway. I'm sure.
We're all
sleep.
The only thing that happened is that the base commander told us that we were at Ben Tui, a small base along the Mekong Delta. And the base had been surrounded by 4 battalions of Viet Cong and NVA mixture. The base next to him was Can Tho, and that had been overrun. The base had at one time Vietnamese soldiers assigned to work with them in protecting the base, but they deserted. So the only thing was left on the base was 250 policemen plus 25 of us and 25 from another base. And so during the briefing, the commander told us, "I'm glad you're here, but I have to tell you that we are under siege, and we're estimated the ratio is 20-1 in their favor." So, that put a scare into us. But anyway, you do what you got to do. And so what stood out is that they put us in reserve, and they took us to a half-finished barracks to wait until we got deployed. 30 minutes after we got there, we got hit by mortars. And I tell you what, I don't know what to describe it. When the mortars hit, I felt like the bottom of my stomach had dropped. I mean, it just scared the hell out of me.
How old are you at this point?
About 20.
God.
And so, where do you hide? Where do you go?
Yeah.
You just hope to God that you make it. But they did kill one of our men, but the rest of us were okay. But at that time, it's traumatic.
Sure.
But in comparison to some of my friends that were in the Marine Corps at Quezon and other bases, infantry, mine was nothing. I admire them for their courage and for what they stood up for and what they went through. But in Nam, there was no front line.
Right.
Everybody was in danger from mortar to rockets, grenade. So I admire anybody that put their boots on in Vietnam.
Yeah, me too. And for you to say it's nothing, I mean, that's a test. I mean, I respect what you're saying, but that's a testament of I think the caliber of the substance of the people that come from the school you come from.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that the story be heard, because it's ironic to me. I think a lot of the people and the causes that soldiers fight for, those are the very people that it gets lost on them, how lucky they are and how much others have done in the line of service for them to have, for all of us to have what we have. It's like I said, the older, when we talked about it before, the older I get, the more I respect it. How long did you serve total in total? How long were you
in Vietnam? 18 months. In the Air Force, I did a total of 4 years. I was going to mention that one thing that stands out that I want to make, say that's important, is all these soldiers, all these Marines, all this Air Force, all the Coast Guard, all the different branches that served in Nam. What I saw in them is they never did it to get recognized. They never did it to expect anything. They were just humble soldiers that did their duty. They never bragged about it or made a big show about it. They just went in there and served their country.
I think that's the pride of like I said, it's a strange thing, because I kind of mentioned it to you before. I mean, I'm the youngest in the family. I'm the baby. So as long as I can remember, I just remember my godfather, who's a happy, funny, joking, silly guy, very, very lighthearted. And, every last member of my family, my grandfather, my godfather, all the way to my brother, my father, rest in peace, they all served. Now, they were all military. But as those who actually went to war, as you get older, there's this, I like to think it's an age of reason. You realize, that's like, I see the old pictures, like some of the ones you bought. I will look at them. You'll stop and see it and be like, that's my godfather. It's impossible to picture. I know my godfather. I don't know this MP hard soldier that in Vietnam, and it's like that's so it's a story worth looking into and being heard, because like I said, it's that was my one regret, is that I never got to sit down and do this with my grandfather before he passed away. So
well, interesting enough, James, you got the exterior. For most veterans, we try to do the best we can, and we try to find joy in life. But you come back changed. You don't get away from the stress of being in a zone that you're constantly on the lookout, constantly worried about where they're going to come from, worried where the next mortar is going to come from. I mean, we come back and you can't quickly adapt. World War II soldiers came back by boat. They had 30 days to decompress. In Vietnam, when you return back to the United States, it can be within 18 and 24 hours. So you leave in a stressful combat area and you're back in a city.
Wow.
But your mind is still back where you left. And so loud sounds, fireworks, you look for, constantly on the look for dangerous situations or way to defend or ways to. I mean, for most Vietnam veterans, it doesn't go away.
Right.
It's with you. Sometimes you do well for a while, and then something else triggers it out. And so there is a loss. I think one time someone mentioned in war, people coming back from wars, there's a loss of innocence.
Yeah.
You know, and things are never the same.
Well, you weren't even old enough to buy a beer when you went.
No.
Legally.
No.
I mean, yeah.
I turned 21. I turned 21 in Nam.
Wow.
You know.
Do you remember your 21st birthday? Do you remember that day?
No. I mean, those, days like that, just too hectic.
Sure.
You know, sometimes.
Fighting a war.
Yeah, you were out in. I was out on patrol. You know, I would do night patrols down what we call Highway 1, looking for contact. And the sadness is, I can tell you one time that what really impacted me is we were on a night patrol driving a Jeep, myself and another guy, and our orders were go down Highway 1, report any contact. If you make any contact, we're not going to be able to go and save you, but make sure you report it. And so we stopped at an MP checkpoint, and there was about, I think, 4 or 5 MPs there. So, we sat there and BS with them for a little while, and then we went back on our patrol. And our patrol route took us about 2 hours up through Highway 1 into a rubber plantation, banana plantation area. Then we would come back. By the time we came back, that checkpoint had been hit. All 5 MPs had been killed. In those short period of time. So that still haunts me. I talked to them for a while and then came back and they're all gone, So that really still bothers me a lot to have lost them.
Is there a group or a number or maybe a couple of guys that you're still in contact with from that time?
Only one. Yeah, that I still. Yeah, not too many. You make strong friendships, and then you sort of wipe things out.
Right.
Your memories. I still have, lost some memories. During that particular Tet Offensive, where we were reinforcing that base, I remember getting there, being assigned a foxhole with another guy. And I remember, this is vivid, it was like a movie. We're in the foxhole, and I hear the drum of airplanes, and I look up and I see 4 propeller-driven Sky Raiders from World War II. And I see them, and they're flying, and all of a sudden, it's like the Indians stopped, and it dove in, went across, and dropped napalm, and then the whole area lit up in orange. I mean, and it was like a movie.
Yeah.
It was surreal.
How far from where you were physically?
Maybe half a mile.
Yeah.
But we're applauding because we knew the enemy was on the other side.
Right.
They had already attempted to infiltrate sappers that same night, the night before. So we knew they were there. So they were roasting people. So that was okay with us.
Sure. Yeah.
But I remember that. As like I said, and I remember coming back from being there. But ask me a lot more information about what happened there, where I ate, where I slept. I don't remember. I remember snapshots. And I always was having nightmares that had been shot in the chest. It just haunted me. And so I went to see a counselor, and he said, well, sometimes people lock things out as a defensive mechanism.
Right.
And I tried to explain to him, I know, but I feel like my life in that portion, I have a puzzle and there's missing parts of it, and I want to have those missing parts. And he said, well, sometimes for you guys, it's better that you don't remember.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure a lot of veterans, go through that things happen in the fog of war, and you act and you react, and sometimes you can't remember everything that happened.
I would think my best friend helped me understand something about myself a long time ago. He says, when we talked about, I guess, just things that, the way we tick and things that drive you nuts about yourself or other people, he says, you know what your problem is? He says, you're just like my brother, his biological brother. He says, you like the truth just a little too much.
Yeah.
You're a little too, and you got to know. Like there are those people who have to know, like and then there's people that are just totally at peace with, I guess like your counselor was saying, maybe for some people just not filling in the blanks sits well with them, but for some people that's just no. Like you really want to know.
Yeah, it's true.
So talk about life once you got back. When you came back, what was the turn of events that led up to you coming back? What happened?
I at the end of my second tour, then I got assigned here to Lackland Air Force Base, and then they moved me over to Kelly, and I was with a base policer. I think what stands out for most people that are gone in the service, and like in Vietnam, is you come back, and the world has changed. All my friends, I don't know where they're at. They're all scattered. People will say, hey, you remember that dance? I said, no, I wasn't here. Hey, do you remember going to that? No, I wasn't here. So there's a lot of things that happen that you were not a part of for a period of time. And so there's a loss of connection, doing stuff like that. But you try to adjust. You still try to adjust.
Do you remember the first thing you did when you got back?
The first thing I did, because I wanted to have fresh eggs.
I would have said food. If that had been me, I think it would have been food.
Yeah, because most of the stuff we get in Nam was powdered eggs where they reconstituted, stuff that was dried and they mixed up. I mean, it was good, but to have fresh eggs, huevos rancheros. Now that's coming back to reality.
They didn't have that in Vietnam, I bet.
Yeah.
Huevos rancheros.
Yeah, I can't find that.
Were you already involved? Did you have a girlfriend when you left? Or were you dating?
I met my wife. I spent one semester in San Antonio College, and I met my wife, and we dated for about maybe a couple of months. And then I shipped out, and I corresponded with her. And luckily, when I came back, she was still not married, so I started dating her again.
And what was that like? I guess having coming back from what you had. I mean, because it's like you say, it changes you. I know it's personal, but the whole thing is personal. I mean, was it something that? Obviously, it worked out. You guys have done something right.
Yeah. 52 years later.
I mean, that's great. It's
I got a tolerant wife. No, she helped me because I would have nightmares. And I would have problems. I still have problems sometimes sleeping. I used to sleep with one eye open, and you want to get up and check to see. I would tell her, I think it's like I had to check the perimeter, make sure everything's okay, so she was tolerant. She helped me a lot.
That's awesome. That's great. What was the first job you had after you came? I mean, how long were you in the military after? You said 4 years?
I served 4 years in the Air Force.
Okay. So, did that help? I mean, having still, I guess, still having the same title and occupation and under the military, when you came back, I mean, do you think that made the transition a little easier coming back from
Nam?
Yeah.
I spent the last, I think it was about a year, maybe a year and a few months at Kelly.
Uh-huh.
And Then I had to decide whether I was going to make the military a career, which was hard because I enjoyed the military. And I did well. I went to Vietnam with 1 stripe, and I came back with 5. So I did well, and I really thought about staying in, but I always wanted to go to college. I saw what poverty is. I came from a family of 7 and a father that earned $60 a week, and I wanted to get an education. And that I wanted to be in a position to educate my children, and get out of poverty and give them a bump, and they would give a bump to their kids. And so that was my driving force. I decided to get out, and I went to St. Mary's. I got a degree. I graduated from there, and I was going to teach. But the funny story is, if you have time to listen to this one, is I was in college. I was going to graduate in May. In December, my wife says, we've been on birth control for 5 years. I need to get off because the body needs to cleanse itself so we can have children. I says, why don't you wait until I graduate and get a teaching contract? No, I think I need to get off now. That was December. I said, okay. February 1st, she goes, I think I'm pregnant. I said, what happened to my year?
Oh, you meant next February?
Yeah, what happened to my year of adjustment? But God is good to us. He helps us out. So I graduated, and I got a job in protective services, doing child welfare cases, neglect and abuse, and I did that for about a year. And then the state opened up a child support enforcement unit, and I got transferred into that. And so I did 24 years doing child support in various positions, and I retired. And my military helped me. I got the GI Bill. I put it to use, and then my goal was to get my kids educated. So I've got 3, 2 girls and 1 boy. One's a doctor, one's got her master's in education, and the other one's an architect. And so now they're going to bump their kids up, because in order for minorities, in my view, to change their status is to get educated and then have good lives and be good citizens. And so they may be proud.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's not by accident, all of the success, because I've pondered that before about the family, about my god siblings, as I call them. It's awesome, and I think it's a beautiful story of to me, education is rebellion. Because to me, when people want to put it on you that you're stupid, or that you're beneath learning, or or that they want to size you up or put you in a class, I just think that that to me was always the one thing that really peacefully stick it in their face, is to be educated, to be well spoken, or to have any type of credential to where they can't. It's harder for them to put you in that box. So do I get to see some of these?
Sure.
So can I pick one, and then I'm actually gonna hold it up, but we're also going to later on.
This is where we're providing security for a medical team.
And then later on, I'm gonna take pictures of this as well, so that we can have that. And you're the one on the left, just so people know, because
this is me and
I love this picture.
My Korean partner.
And I'll take still shots of these when we're done.
We're out there doing a search of villages.
So that behind you is like a villager's dwelling or house, or
what was interesting, James, when they sent us to Nam the first time, we were not equipped. We got there and they didn't have the right uniform. We didn't have any camouflage uniforms. We didn't have any jungle boots. We didn't have a lot of the equipment that it was for that area. So we were stuck with what we brought from the United States, our regular United States based uniforms. Wow. So they're not the best to be out there. I think there's one here. They finally gave us. I'm sorry. They finally gave us the fatigues, that are better suited for what we were doing.
That's a bad looking dude. That's a cool picture.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how long before you did get the gear for the equipment? You're in like at least you have uniforms, right? I mean, granted.
Yeah, we did, but they're not suited. We had leather boots in a hot jungle area.
Yeah.
In moist area. The jungle boots would allow the evaporation to go through, and water. If you got your boots wet, the water would come out. With leather boots, they get rigid, and they get wet and they don't dry up.
Yeah.
So we were out on patrol, and we were in a swampy area with this kind of uniform, and which was very funny because the guy said, "Don't worry about it. We're going to be here in the swamps. There are saltwater crocodiles and there are snakes, but we'll watch out for those. Don't worry about the water. It's only about 5 feet deep." I said, "Sir, I'm 5'4".
I'm 5 foot deep.
So that was struggle.
Man, yeah, only 5 feet. Yeah. Yeah, but look at these pictures, and this is the Korean guy, right?
Yes, Korean M.P. White Horse.
White Horse is
the division. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you say to other younger vets who have come back? I mean, they with the same things you described going through. What do you think? What would you say to them in terms of dealing with the aftermath? What are the things that got you through? I mean, you talked about some of them, but what specifically? What advice would you offer? What kind of?
Rely on the good Lord. Pray for His support. Look for your family for support. Don't be afraid to ask for help and get for help. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of, when I first came back, the services available to Vietnam veterans was not that great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's improved a lot for the new veterans, and they just need to take advantage of it. Look to your fellow soldiers and the military guys, and they'll help you too. And we get together with veterans and we talk and we share experience and we encourage each other, and that's the only thing you can do.
And to the point of what I was asking you about, what was the overall, I guess, vibe or sentiment of the people when you came back? Because a lot of vets talk about coming back and not being treated very well.
Oh no, there was a lot of discuss and a lot of remarks aimed at me. I know when I came back. I had people call me a baby killer. I had people tell me, well, when you were gone, I was demonstrating against the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. I said, well, I didn't see you demonstrating in Vietnam.
Yeah.
I didn't see you marching down Highway 1. Yeah. Demonstrating. You were demonstrating over here.
Where it's nice and safe.
Where it's safe, you know. So, no, there were some comments that were still very anti-war.
Did you find that it made it more difficult systematically? Like, did you have problems from your, I guess, like your professors in school, or from your employers outside of the military, or like, did you have to deal with any of that? Or
not with the school. I
That's good.
didn't have any problems with the school. I had problems when I got a job, and you come in and there's younger guys that you and women that are snidey about you being a veteran.
Right.
But that's their problem. I didn't let it phase me.
Right. It's there again. I just think it's a testament of the thick skin, of there's a grace that you old schoolers deal with stuff.
Yeah.
I miss it because I watch the news and I try not to wallow in it, but
Yeah.
I got a pulse on what I guess the thickness of the skin of your average everyday Joe these days, and it's like there again. I think that's why your story's so important, and I thank you for sharing it. It means a lot to me.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything else that stands out, or that I didn't touch on, or that you'd like to say about it, or?
No, I think you covered everything, and I just want to tell my fellow vets that I love them, stand by them.
Amen. All right. Well, we got to do this again, and you came early, so I honestly was going to have beer here, and then you came early, so maybe we'll grab one on the way home. I love you, Padrino.
I love you too. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. And we will be we'll be back here in February with more episodes of the Texas Nite Owl podcast, and this is a very special one to me. I'm very glad it's the first, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. And take it easy, take care out there, and we'll talk to you soon.